is being recorded. So later on, you can actually have this playing as you do it. So a lot of people tend to just watch the workshop, see what I'm doing, and then they'll get the recording of it, and then they'll follow along that way, so then they can pause it along the way if they need to. Just feel free to let me know if I'm moving too fast, if you have any specific questions, and yeah, let's get started. All right, and I'll do my best to try and monitor like chat if anybody just chats, but if you have questions, I will not be upset if you just unmute and just ask them. So feel free. So right here, I have this just these notes for like, you know, some considerations for designing in print. And I'm also going to go over a little bit of like digital design aspects. But first off, you'll want to think of just kind of like consider what it is that you're making. If you're doing something that is pages, you'll want to think about like, what is it that you're trying to create? For example, we have this bifold brochure. So this sheet of paper is one page, but it has 4 panels. So, you know, technically it's 2 pages because you can print on the front and the back, but it's a single sheet of paper that you're doing. But then there is 4 individual panels that you'll be working on. And that would be the front and the back, and then the 2 on the inside, which can be just one long panel if you wanted to. Just kind of consider that when you're designing it. When you're doing print on paper, you'll want to make sure that you size everything appropriately. So if you look on this image, page edge is, it says where it's like trim, but that's the physical aspect ratio of your document. So a sheet of paper from a printer, like, you know, like your home printer, is 8.5 inches by 11 inches. So that's the page edge dimensions. The bleed is an additional, oh yeah, sure. Sorry about that. All right, is that a little bit better? Cool. So yeah, page edge right here. The bleed is, if we scroll up here, a bleed is used for making sure that any of the print that you have can continue off of a page. So it goes all the way to the edge. In order to, there are some printers that have like the capability of printing that without like having to actually like trim down pieces of paper, but you'll still need a bleed on them. It's usually about 1/8 of an inch. And that's just to make sure that every single bit of that page is covered. I don't really use anything with slugs. And then there's the crop marks, which is just the actual areas where they're going to cut the paper. And then there is the margins. So I use the margins as the absolute safe space. So when you're trying to do something on a document, you'll want to make sure that fits inside of that margin, so then it doesn't accidentally get trimmed off. So that's what I would use the margins for. There's CMYK and RGB. They aren't exactly interchangeable. So when we get into Illustrator, I'll kind of show you how to make sure that it is a bit more interchangeable as much as possible. There is overlap, but there isn't always overlap, if you know what I mean. So CMYK is like painting. So it's all pigments that get mixed together. And then RGB is light. So when you combine them, they actually make white. So this is just kind of showing you how they would get mixed together to make things. Red and green make yellow. So it is a little bit weird to like think of it that way. But yeah, so that's why it makes it a little bit more difficult to design for that. So anything that you are doing on print is going to have, it's going to end up being slightly darker. So you should always take into account anything that you are printing, like have a sample printed, and it's going to end up drying darker than what you expected on your computer screen. You're not going to have quite as vivid colors because it isn't light being shot into your eyeballs. So you want to make sure that you are using colors that are a little bit more compatible. Sometimes like you can add specific things that will make it like maybe a little bit better. Like there are fluorescent inks or there is gloss that you can put on whatever you're doing. So it can give some of those illusions, but in general, it's not going to be as vivid. But on the flip side, because it is going to be slightly darker, the blacks are actually black versus screens. Most screens are backlit. The only screens that are not completely backlit are OLED screens, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be the closest representation of black of any of your darks possible. So sometimes you might want to like check your design on your phone to see how dark your darks are going to be. It'll still be very more vivid, but at least you'll get like an understanding of how dark it may be. So, and the reason why OLED does that is because OLED is not backlit. Each pixel is lit up individually, or each cluster of pixels is lit up individually, so they can actually like turn off on their own. You also want to try and consider like, what else are you going to be doing on this print? Like I said before, there is like a gloss that you can do on prints. So you want to make sure that you actually have a separate like file that is the exact same dimensions and everything, and just a black and white file of whatever it is. So then they have a reference for your gloss. They'll print that basically on top of whatever they printed in the first place. So that's what you would do for that. So you just gotta kind of think about what you're trying to do. If you have any questions, talk to the printers. They can always like guide you a little bit more into what their like processes and what they'll need from you. So the other thing is printing for shirts is a little bit different than printing with paper. There are like in Alkek One, in the makerspace, we have a DTG printer, which is direct to garment. And those printers work similarly to just like your regular inkjet printers for paper. But just like those, you can't exactly print on any other colors. So if you printed blue, I'll go back up so you have an idea. So if you printed like this cyan color on top of yellow, this green is actually the color that you're going to get because they're subtractive. So they're just combining together to be a different color of pigment. So the best prints actually come out on white or very light shirts. If you want to print on dark shirts like black or very dark gray, stuff like that, you'll want to actually print with screen printing. And when you screen print, you're actually creating individual screens that they can lay on top of each other with those specific colors. This white layer that says is kind of misleading. It's actually a lot more white to get this to work on a black shirt, because you would backfill all of the logo, this logo, with white, because the red won't show up on black necessarily. So you just do one base white on top of this, and then you would go through with individual screens to have like your blue layer, then your gray layer, and then your red layer. And then those all get like dried, and that's what make your t-shirt a screen printed t-shirt. So that kind of pretty much sums up all of the notes part before we get into Adobe Illustrator. Is there any questions that you'd like to ask? We have some time. And feel free to unmute yourself. All right. So I'm going to just go ahead and pop open Illustrator. So give it a minute. I'll give you guys a few moments longer. Oh, do we need to bring our own shirts for printing in the makerspace? Yes. But you can always get them from like Target or wherever cheap. There's also, let me see if I can drop something in the chat for you guys. Just so then you have a website that has cheap shirts that you can just buy. That's good for printing. I'll put that in real quick. So give me a moment. All right, so this is a link to one of the ones that I use. You're not limited to this. There's a ton of them, but I just use alldayshirts.com. They tend to have pretty relatively cheap shirts, and they're not exactly like terrible quality. So that's always a plus. You just have to be aware of, you know, whatever make the shirt is. So if you want something that's a little bit more like, has a little bit more longevity, maybe go with like a 50-50 t-shirt. If you do a heavy cotton, those are going to be those really stiff shirts. Yeah, but beware that if you do buy from them, they love to constantly send you mail. So just make sure that you're aware of that before you sign up from. But I'm going to go ahead and get into Illustrator now. So once we have Illustrator open, we're just going to select letter. We can change any of these settings like later on, like whatever size you want it to be. But essentially, you'll just click on like letter and then like create new. And that's going to bring up an actual like letter printed one, or like, you know, a standard piece of paper letter print. That's what that is. If you want to change anything, just go to File and then Document Setup. And then that brings open all of those things that you would like to change. So it gives you the amount of bleed that you want. You can change like your units. Points is kind of like meaningless. I like to use like inches or centimeters, sometimes millimeters, just so then I understand what it is, like when I'm building something, the actual scale that it's going to be. Points and pixels are all kind of relative. So I usually try to stick with inches. Most printers like inches. So yeah, just select inches, and then there's type. all this stuff is not needed to know. But that pretty much covers that portion of it. Like I said, you can put in your bleeds and it will go by a 1/8 of an inch. So if you hit OK, it'll give you this little red ring around your paper. That is telling you this is where your bleeds are. So this is your actual canvas size. And then whatever overfill that you'll want on your image, you'll want to do that with this. The other thing that you'll want to do in File is make sure that your document color mode is set to CMYK and not RGB. And I did say that I was going to show you guys some stuff with the color part of it. So I'm just going to do that real quick before I forget. So if we select any other color in this space using this color selector, and try and find one, there it is. So if you select it and you see that, it's saying that the color is out of gamut. So that's saying that the color that you have picked is an RGB color that will not exactly transfer to CMYK. So to fix that, just go underneath it to the square and click on the in gamut color, and that will correct it. And now this is going to be something that will be printable in CMYK. It's usually pretty good, but you'll still want to make sure that you get like samples of everything that you've done. Just make sure that it prints exactly the way that you want it. So I'm going to delete this and then we'll go over some of the tools. Is there any questions before I start going over some of these tools?
I have a question. So, you're just going to be designing a logo today?
Yeah, I'm going to show you how to create the one that I put in there, the image that I put in there.
Okay. All right,
So
cool.
it's going to show you all the like basic tools that you would need to accomplish that.
Okay. You made that?
I did not. It is the squadron that I was in. So I'll just go ahead and show you what how to get that in there. So just go into wherever it is, like file wise, and just drag and drop it on top of there. And that places it inside of your space in Illustrator.
Right.
But this is the official logo of this squadron. So I did not make it, but I've painted it so many times.
Gotcha. All right, thanks.
No problem. All right, so what we're going to do is make sure that everybody's on the same layout. So if you come up to the top corner over here, next to where it says like search Adobe, there's this little switch workspace. If you click on that, make sure you're in Essentials Classic. That is the workspace that I'm using. There are different ones for different things. It can be helpful to switch between workspaces, but when it comes to just like teaching it, Essentials Classic is the one that I go to because it doesn't change all the time. So yeah, this is Essentials Classic layout. And then you'll come over here to the side. There's this like, looks like two pieces of paper stacked on top of each other. And this is your layers. We want to basically make this layer a reference layer. So we want the opacity turned down a little bit, and we want to be able to not select it by accident. So in order to do that, we will double click on the image on the layer right here, this little thumbnail, and then it brings up your layer options. So you can change the name from layer 1 to whatever you want. I always put like reference or just ref for short. That way that I know this is the one layer that has everything in the background, and you can always unlock it later if you want to like put more stuff in it. But in general, all you have to do is click on template, and then that automatically dims your image, and then it'll lock it as well. So if you see, now we can't do anything to this layer. We can't accidentally select the image. It's a little bit lighter, so it'll mess with some of the color picking that you can get from it, which is something that you can do with it. It'll actually like pick the color that is dimmed to. But you can also unlock it and click on it and drag it around if you need to. To undo anything that you have just done, press Control-Z. To redo it, you can press Control-Shift-Z, and that'll redo it. You can also go to Edit and do all of that there. So undo and redo. And then let's lock that back up so we can't grab it. And then add a new layer. So a layer is essentially like a collection of objects that you would stack on top of each other like a piece of paper. But you could think of them as like kind of like mini folders. So you can actually like have several objects inside of that little mini folder, and it'll stack on top of it on like a folder would in real life, or a piece of paper. But within that mini folder, which is the layer, those objects stack on top of each other as well. So if we add a new layer, I'll show you how that works. But I'm just going to grab this rectangle tool. I'm just going to draw a few real fast so you can see. So I have all of these different shapes and sizes. So you can see they overlap each other based on the stack position that they are. So this one is all the way at the bottom. So that means that everything on top of it will get precedence. So you can always click and drag that up, or you can press Control open or close bracket to move it up and down in the layer stack. So that's how that works. I'm going to select all of them and delete them, and then we can get into the building of this. So if we long click the rectangle tool, so just like kind of hold it down for like a half a second, it'll pull up these extra tools on the side. The only tool that is not useful in this is the flare tool. It looks god awful, and never ever use it. It is so bad. You're much better off just getting an image off the internet. But we're going to start with the ellipse tool. So the two tools that are actually the most used have hotkeys. And if you look on the side, they have them right here. So rectangle, you would press M, and then ellipse tool is L. So we're going to select the ellipse tool. And then we're going to come over here. You'll notice there is like a little pink thing that pops up. It actually says center. So it's telling me where my cursor is aligned. So this is the center of the document. And it's going to snap it to that portion of the document. So if I click and drag, I will start to draw out a ellipse. So ellipse can be in either an oval or a circle. So you just have to kind of know what you want. If you just click and drag out like this, it's going to drag it out from the corner. If we hold Alt, it's going to drag it out from the center. So it's going to, instead of being the diameter, basically the diameter, if you will, of it inside of a box, you can do it by radius. So I always find that this one is much more useful. If we want it to be a perfect circle, we'll also hold Shift. So that allows it to go from the center and makes it a perfect circle. So mind you, all of this, I have not, this entire time, I have not let go of any of these buttons. So the moment that you let go of them, they go back to where they were. And if you let go of the mouse key, that ends it. So that's one circle that we have made. We have this circle here, and now we can't see anything that we're doing. So I like to just use stroke lines at this point and turn off any of the fill. So if we have this selected and we go over here, you'll see there's the fill and then the stroke. So you can swap between the two like so, and that'll give you like a white stroke and a black fill. But with the, if you select stroke, that's going to give you all the options for just the stroke. If you select fill, it's going to give you all the options for just the fill. If you double click on any of them, you get the color picker for it. So I want to come over here. There's the gradient tool. So you could also turn it into a gradient if you wanted to. But I want to select none so we can see what we're doing. But we'll have a black stroke so we can actually see where that, that stroke is being generated. So if we press V, that gives us our selection tool. So anytime that you want to just select a thing, just use the selection tool and that'll select that entire object there. But if we zoom in, you can see that it's just a black stroke on there. Quick way of zooming in and out is holding Alt and then your middle mouse button. It'll scroll in wherever your mouse is. So it's very handy when you're trying to figure out where you want to zoom in. If you hold spacebar, it turns into the hand tool, and the hand tool allows you to pan across the page. So if we're zoomed in, we want to go over to one side, you just hold down the spacebar and click and drag to get to the other side. The other way of zooming in is Control plus or minus. All right, now having drawn out this circle, this is going to be the base of the next shape that we're going to make. So we're going to just press Control C to copy this. And then we're going to press, if you press Control V, it's just going to place it wherever the center of your screen is. So this is going to be placed in the center. We don't want that. We want it placed exactly where it was. So if we press Control Z and then Control Shift V, it places it exactly where you copied it from. And with it selected, we can actually rescale it just like we did when we made the circle in the first place. So we can go over to the corners and drag down. And as you can see, we can distort it however we want to. If you hold Alt, it will distort it from the center. And then if you hold Shift, it will just shrink it proportionally. So next, we're going to combine these two to make one object. So if we turned on the fill for this, each one would be individually filled. So we have this one has white fill, the black stroke on it, and then this one does as well. But this one, we want to essentially have that, we want to have this part all yellow, right? So we want to use these two shapes to create a more complex shape. So having these selected, you can just click and drag to select both of them. Go up to Object, and then we're going to go down to Compound Path, and then we're going to click Make. So now if we fill this, it's going to be essentially these two as the borders, and then everything in between is going to be filled. So if we click off of it and then zoom in, you'll see each side has a stroke, and then there's the fill layer. So kind of like a coloring book. We can, of course, change the color of it. If you come up here with your object selected, there is these two sections right here. So there's the stroke and then the fill. If you click the arrow down, it'll give you a palette of colors. We can just choose like one of these yellows. I think this yellow is pretty close to it. Yeah, just this first yellow is close to the same color. So that'll fill it. And we actually don't want the stroke anymore. There's no need for there to be an outline because we will be adding different circles essentially to create those different shapes. So we can click on the stroke and then press none. And gives us just a nice big yellow donut. We select it and we go into layers. We can actually hide it inside of the layer without turning off the layer. So you can either hide the layer or the individual component in there. So if you see this is that selected, you can just press the eyeball and it hides it. So it'll keep it in there and you'll be able to see what you're doing later. Any questions? Cool. All right. So from here on, we're going to essentially the parts that we're going to make now is just going to be another circle out here for the black fill, and then a white circle for the white fill. And then we are going to use the pen tool to create one of these bones. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to show you a quick way of like just mirroring it and flipping it. We don't have to do the entire, we don't have to do them exactly the same. It's kind of an, it's up to you thing. I'm not going to make the skull because it would be the exact same as this bone. We're going to make 2 stars, and then we're going to have the text in there, and we're going to have it sitting curved like it is here. So that's what we'll be doing for the rest of this. Afterwards, I will also show you how to save out stuff and maybe organize the files, like how I would do it if I was going to send this to, like, say, a screen printer or something. So now we're just going to create 2 stars real fast. So if we long click on this ellipse button right here, you can click on the star tool, and it works relatively similar to the ellipse tool or the rectangle tool. Just click and drag it out, and you'll notice that you can click and it'll kind of orbit around, so you can change the which position a point is laying. You can also hold Alt, and then that'll snap it to this this more rigid kind of star. And if you hold Shift, it will lock it into place so you can't turn it. So all we have to do is then just click and drag it out to fit the size of a star. And there we go, we have a star. If we click on the default fill and stroke, you can turn that on, and then it'll have your stroke and your fill. We can also swap it to get black on that side and white on this side, and then turn off the stroke. Or you could have just selected the fill and then gone up there and then just clicked on black. So there's several different ways to skin the cat in Illustrator. So I'm going to have, with the selection tool, I'm going to select the star, and then I'm going to hold Alt and then click and drag. And after I click and drag, I'm going to press Shift, and that's going to lock these two parallel to each other, or in line with each other. And we can just drag that all the way over. and that's going to duplicate the star. So anytime that you hold Alt before you click on an object, you'll see you get two arrows that's saying that you're copying that object. So we now have two stars, and we want to start putting in some text. So in order to do that, we can just draw out another circle, or we can press Control-Shift-V because we have a circle selected or like copied already, and we can just fit that same circle inside where we want it to be. So this circle is going to be the essentially the base for all of our text. So if you can line it up with like underneath the text where it is, that's where it's going to be. But I'll show you that you can adjust that later. So we're just going to go through some of the stuff in the tool, the text tool, because there's more to it than just writing on an object. So the regular type tool, you can just click and it'll give you lorem ipsum, which is just filler text. As you can see, it's already highlighted, so you can just start typing whatever you like after that, and it'll just remove it. And if you get the text tool again, you can click and drag out a rectangle for it. So this is going to give you a text space, and that is going to fill it with lorem ipsum, which again is just gibberish. This is pretty useful because you can start to set up a document without having to have all of the information that people were supposed to give you. So you can give people a little bit of time to kind of give you like any of the content if you're trying to like make a flyer or something like that. You can kind of lay everything out and then start to fill in text later when you know, they're ready to give you all that. So I'm going to delete that, select that, and then if we go over here, there's the type area tool. If we click on that, we can actually select one of those paths. So in this instance, we'll have this circle. And if we click on that, it will fill, oops, sorry about that. It will fill that circle with text like it did with the regular text tool that you just click and drag out. So instead of it being inside of a rectangle, you can literally make any shape that you want and then put text in there like that. So I'm going to undo that. And then outside of that, there is the type on path tool, which is what we're going to do now. But just real quick, these three underneath it are the exact same tools, just a vertical version of it. So if you were to do a type tool, you would get a vertical type tool. So all of your text would be going straight down in a line instead of left to right. And same with vertical area typing and then vertical type on a path tool. So here we're going to select that one, and then we're going to hover over the path that we want to put our text on. And it'll say path right next to it in pink. And we'll just click, and then it'll just fill it in with that lorem ipsum. And what we want to do is type DFA 103. And now that we have that, we can actually just click on the selection tool, and we can kind of play around with this. So if you look right here, there's these little white boxes. These white boxes are to like, essentially like when this text is completely filled on this path, this allows you to continue that text in a different space. So be careful not to click on those. We're going to be using these lines right here. So if you see, when you hover over the line, there's like a line with an arrow on it, sorry, like that. And that's going to allow us to control where this text is going to start and then where the text will stop. So that would be on this side. So it'll limit it to that. And then we can also, with all this selected, go over to where it says paragraph. We can actually align it to center, and now it'll align it to the center of these. And that'll let you go over to your point size. You can scale that up as big as you like it. Just click and hold and it'll work. You can also go into, sorry, not paragraph, into character. And then you can do, you can play with some of the settings. So this is the font size. This is going to be the leading, which is the spacing between two lines of text. So it won't show up if we do that. We can do the spacing or the tracking of the characters. So if we just started clicking on this, this spaces out the characters between each other just a little bit further, or brings them closer. And you can really, really, really bring them in and they will start to overlap each other. So if you wanted to make something that is supposed to overlap, you can do that. It's all entirely up to you. We're just going to leave it at 0. And then there is the vertical scale, so you can stretch it up higher. Let's just click on the drop down. So you can stretch it to make it tall, or you can make it wider. So you can make it like really wide and fat. But if you look, it starts to distort it. So just be aware of that. Once you're done with that, you can also click on the font family. So this is where you will find your font family, which is the exact same as right here. And then this will tell you if it's regular or bold. We'll just stay with regular. So right now we have the VFA portion of it. We'll want to do another one for Jolly Rogers down here. We can always Control-Shift-V and create another circle and then scale it however we need to. So Shift and Alt and just kind of line that up where we want it to be. And then we'll do another type tool. And then we'll click on the path that we want it to be on. So we'll click here. Oops. The type on path tool. So now we'll click like right here, and then it'll fill it in. And what we want to do is change it to say Jolly Rogers. So that's our text being typed on there, but we want to like realign everything. So we'll want to come over to, where is it? To this space. We'll make it, we'll bring it all the way around. So this is where it'll end. And then this is where it would start, but it's upside down. So we can change that just by clicking on it and then shifting over, sorry, on this one in the middle, and then shifting it over to the other side. So that'll allow you to fill in your text on that side. And then in order to bring back all of your text, you can just click on that line and start to drag it around until it fits. But because of this, our text is not where we want it exactly to be. So we can just scale it up. So we're essentially just scaling up that circle that we made. So click and Alt and Shift and just scale it out to fit about where you want it to be. Then we can drag this out a little bit more if we'd like, and then it'll kind of center this for us. So there's our text. One of the big problems with text when we're trying to do print is that if we send this to a printer, they'll probably have Myriad Pro, but say we have some special font that we downloaded, they're not going to be able to see it as it is because it's going to replace the font that you have with whatever they have available on their computer. So to get around this, we want to make sure that everything is going to, all of this text is going to be outlined. So essentially made into an object or a shape like the star. To do that, just select the text that you want and then right click and then go to create outlines. And then that creates them as an outline for you. That's all you have to do for the text. And next, we're just going to start drawing this bone. Are there any questions on any of the text tools?
Can you show how to do the overlapping text again?
What's that?
Like when you did the VFA 103 and it was, you made it less wide and it started overlapping itself.
Sure. So, and you can do that with any of them. So I'm just going to grab this type tool and just like drag out some text, right? So with all of it highlighted and selected, so you'll have to make sure that's either all selected or you have the box that the font is selected in. You'll go to character, so this little character panel, and then it'll pop down this little box, and then that spacing is right here. So that's the tracking for the characters. You can just go down here, you can space it out or bring it in really close. If it doesn't start to overlap each other, just keep bringing it down. And you can actually just highlight inside of this box and type in whatever you want. So like you could do 300 and hit enter, and it's just like a mess on top of each other.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So I'm going to change that. It tends to remember the things that you last did. So if you only want to do that on one thing, just make sure that you change it back when you create the next object. So now we're going to use the pen tool, which is right here. You can see that next to it in parentheses, there's a P. That is the shortcut for the pen tool. So P for pen. Finally, a shortcut that makes sense. So we're just going to zoom in a little bit. And this is going to be, feel free to talk to me about this. This is one of those things that is a little bit difficult for some people to grasp immediately because it is a weird concept. But we're going to be essentially creating anchor points, right? So a point, and then it's going to have a line that is connecting each of these points. And whether you click and hold and drag or just click is going to tell it if it's going to be curved or just a sharp straight line. So I'm just going to start somewhere like right here. I guess that's a pointy enough bit. So we'll click on that, and that gives us our first anchor point. And then the line that it's following is like where the line is going to be and how it's going to be shaped. So this one is going to end up being straight if we just clicked like that. That makes it angular and clicks along like that. We don't want to do that. And if you notice, it's filled. So we won't be able to see what we're doing as we go along. So what we want to do, if we move the mouse over to this side, once you're over this panel, it kind of pauses what you're doing with the pen tool. So you can come over here and swap the fill and stroke. So it's only the stroke that you see. So you can see what's going on here. And you can also press Control-Z to undo some of these anchor points. I'm going to go back and do that. And now we're just going to see the stroke. And if you see right here, it's slightly curved before you get to this point. So you'll go to this point and it looks like it'll be straight. But if you click and then hold that mouse button down and then drag your mouse out, it'll curve it. So if you see, as I do this, it'll curve that line a little bit more. These handles that you're seeing are called Bezier handles. These control the curve of the line that you're going to see being placed. So we'll just drag it out to where we want it to be. And that should be good. And then you'll see that it creates this curve right here, but it also starts to curve the next line. So we don't really necessarily want this line there to be curved. We'll want to curve it in a different spot. So we want this to be more of a point. So in order to get rid of this handle, we can just click on that same anchor point that we just created, and that'll just remove that one anchor point. So it'll keep this, not that anchor point, that handle. So it'll keep one half of the handle to keep this line curved. And then it'll allow you to have a sharp point at this anchor point, and then you can just click and drag out and make another curve. And then we can just keep going like that to create all of these shapes. It just takes practice. If you don't like the way that it turns out, you can always change it. If it is beyond fixable, it's okay to delete it and just start over again. Again, it just takes practice to figure out where exactly you want to put it. But eventually you'll kind of intuitively kind of get it. So we'll just go around and start building out the outline shape of this bone here. I'm also going to show you some like tips and tricks along the way. So just go ahead and do that. I'm going to speed up and do this real fast. So feel free to ask any questions while I do that. So I didn't like where I was placing that point. So if you see, I want to move it. So without letting go, you can press the space bar, and then that'll move your anchor point. So it'll kind of like shift it over to like move your anchor point, and then you can place that point exactly where you want it again. And then you can reline up everything that you want to line up. And if you wanted to make these bones like one piece, like it is here, and just kind of go all the way around it, you can. I'm just going to do one and then show like kind of like a quick little trick to make two of them, even though they won't be, even though these specific bones aren't the exact same, we can kind of get like roughly there. All right, and then we close it off. If we want to adjust any of these individually after we've made it, we can come over to the top next to the selection tool. There's the direct selection tool, and the hotkey for that is A. So we'll select that, and this allows us to be able to kind of more specifically make what we want exactly the way that we want it. So we can click on this anchor point. We can actually move that anchor point around if we wanted to. We can just kind of maneuver the handles exactly the way that we would like them to be. excuse me. And this will just allow you to just kind of refine the shape that you're trying to make. I'm kind of okay with how it looks right now. So I'm going to press V or grab the selection tool up here. And I'm going to click off of it because sometimes it does funky things. So if you see, I have it all selected, but it's acting as if I'm only selecting this anchor point down here. So first I'm going to select the selection tool. I'm going to click off of it and then I'm going to select it again, and then it will select the entire object. And what I'm going to do to create the other bone is actually right click on it and then go to transform. And then we're going to go to reflect. And this will bring up the reflect dialog box. And if we look over here, we have the preview of it pulled up. So this is the way that's going to look. If we turn it off, that's how it is. This is how it will be. You can press OK and it'll just reflect the one object that you made, or you can press copy. So if we click on copy, it will make a copy of that. So now we have two of the exact same thing. They're just reflected on top of each other. And in this case, we want to combine these two. So they're just one object instead of two stuck together. So I'm just going to select both of these bones. If you want to, if you don't click and drag, you can just hold shift to select the next one too. And that'll allow you to select more than one. And then we're going to come over to the side here. There at the bottom, there's this tool called the Pathfinder. So we'll open up that panel. And these are different modes that you can do. We're just going to do a shape mode. So this is Unite. And this is essentially just going to outline both of these. So if we click on that, now it removes this like cross section and it is one happy object. So that's one way of combining shapes together, as well as that's actually the second way. So before we also had the compound path right here. That's one way of combining shapes together to make a more complex shape. The next way to do that, we're actually going to get another circle. So Control-Shift-V, because we still have that selected. And I'm going to resize this to be the same size as the black circle on the outside. And then I'm going to swap it so that the black is fill and there's no stroke. And then we can't really see what we have going on here. We can always move this to the bottom of the layer stack. But also, if you see right here, there's a thumbnail. If we hold shift and then come over to the side right here next to this circle right here, there's an open space. If you click that, that's going to also select that object. So this is the last one that we made. And I know that's what it is on the top. So we're going to have those two selected. And then we're going to come over to the left side and go to the shape builder tool. The shortcut for that is Shift M, as in Mike. And we're going to either click on that or press Shift M. And what this allows us to do is build one of those compound complex shapes using different objects. So we don't actually want the bones back here because it's going to be white. So we're going to hover over that. And if you look next to it, there's a plus sign. If we hold Alt, it turns into a minus sign next to the mouse arrow. And once you have that, just click on the inside of the bones, and that's going to remove the bone shape. And then we can click on the outside where the circle is. That's going to combine this one and this one. So now if we press V and we click on it, it's one shape that has a cutout in it. So this is going to be useful for adding the white on the background, because if we're to do a screen print, this has to all sit on top of white. Unless you're printing on a white shirt, then you don't have to worry about it. But if you're trying to print on a colored shirt and you're trying to get these exact colors, you'll want to make sure that you have that white background on it. So I'm going to just move it back, and then I'm going to create another circle. So we can do Control-Shift-V, or we can just create a new one using the ellipse tool. And we'll just scale that up to the size that we want. And now this one, we're going to turn on the fill. So we'll swap it so there's no stroke and have fill. And then we'll go up to the top and we'll just select white. And then we want to take this one and drop it all the way to the bottom of the layers so that's underneath everything. And we need to see all the other stuff that we've done. You can't see it because it's all in black. So we can turn on this compound shape right here that's yellow, and boom, we have everything right here. So if you wanted to just take this to a printer and print it on a piece of paper, this is really as far as you need to go. You don't have to break up anything. And honestly, if you were to send this off to a screen printer, they would know what to do with this. They could take it from here. But I'm going to kind of show you how exactly they made some of the, how they would make some of this stuff, just so you have a better understanding of what their job is and what they are doing with it. So if you remember right here, that's essentially what we're going to do is create layers like this. So then they know which color is which layer, and it's nice and organized, and they don't have any questions. They can just open it up and start making their screen. So one thing that I didn't say in the beginning is how they make screens. So essentially what they do is they print out a piece of paper and they fill up a screen, like a screen from a window, essentially. It's a little bit more finer mesh screen, and it's a little bit nicer and more durable, but that's essentially all it is. And they fill it with this emulsion that is UV reactive. So what they essentially do, like light can pass through the areas that they print on, that's white, but the black is going to block any of that light from passing through. So they're printing black on everything. And then once they do that, they cure the emulsion, and then they run it under water, and that leaves the open screen part. So then they can squeegee in ink in there, but this outside part is what is blocking that. So you only get the ink on those areas that you have exposed mesh. So in order for them to do that, let's go back into Illustrator. They need to kind of have everything set up in a specific way that makes sense. So if we look at the order of these things, we have black on top of yellow, and then we have a big black circle underneath that has this guy cut out. So then you can see the white, and then there's just a giant white circle in the background. So if we think about this, we can do the same thing with the black text and the yellow as we did for the bones on the black part. And what we can do is just select the text groups, the stars, the other text group, and then the compound shape there. And then what we're going to do is open up our shape builder. So Shift M, or click on that guy right there. And we're just going to subtract out everything. So we're going to hold Alt, and we're going to subtract the V. Oops, no, we're not. We're going to add them. So press, just click on the yellow part, and then click on any of the yellow parts that you see. They'll all go black, but that's okay. We can change it later. And then we can come through here and we can remove like the V. So hold Alt, and that'll remove the inside of those letters, so there's no overlap. Oops. If you need to zoom in to see what you can do that. And just go through and make sure that you get all these guys. And then we'll do that with the star. And same with all this text right here. We're going to remove all of those. And then this star. So now we actually zoom out now. Now, once we have it selected, we'll have all of those paths that we had before, right? So we could actually technically just hide all of them or even delete them. So the letters and then the stars, we can just kind of get rid of completely. And then we're only left with this. For some reason, I didn't get this inside of the A, the O, and all that. So I'm going to undo the hide. Then I'm going to select those. So the little plus button. So we'll zoom in a little bit with our shape builder. So we'll just click on the inside of all of these just to make sure that we have them. There we go. So now we can actually go through, and I'm just going to select these and delete them because they're not really that useful anymore. Oops. All right, unselect everything and then select all of these in the layer stack right here, and then hit the trash can, and then that removes them. And then we can select the compound path that we made with everything. We can just turn it into yellow again. And then that kind of gives it to you. I have no idea why it doesn't like me trying to add those texts. All right, so I have all those. It's supposed to allow me. I'm going to. That's okay. We can still mess with this. But essentially what we're trying to do is cut out these shapes. So we have the yellow. These are all going to be, they are there. I just selected them and deleted them on accident. So I'm going to select those two. And then I'm going to turn those yellow as well. So, oops. Control Z. Actually, I'm going to select those and then shift select this big circle here. And then we're going to go to object and then path or compound path and then make. So now we can actually work with these a little bit better. If you're getting some like weirdness like this, you can always go inside of the double into the compound path by double clicking. And then we can actually, that'll just lock us into that specific area. And as you can see, we have this text here. We can delete the text if we wanted to, but we want to keep the shape that's on the inside. So we can just do that shape builder tool again. So click on that shape builder, and then you can just hold Alt and remove all of the text like so, since it's being fussy. All right, and then you have that, you can get your selection tool, and then to get out of this like being inside this compound path, you can just double click outside, or you can go up to here and press the arrow back, and that takes you to the layer tool section of it. And now we have this specific one with all of the text and everything cut out. So that leaves us with removing these stars. We don't need the stars. Those are gone now. And now we only actually have 3 objects in here. So we have the white path. So the white in the background, the black behind the yellow, and then the yellow on top of that. One of the problems of this is that this yellow patch is going to not show up on black. So now we have to copy this. So we'll Control C. And then we're going to select the black portion of it. We'll press Shift and click V. And then we're going to, again, do the shape building, or we can come into Pathfinder and do shape modes. And essentially we can cut out, so minus front. So if we click on that, it's going to remove the yellow part of the black. So now this is your black. And then if we press Control Shift B, now we have the yellow one back. So if we look at the layers, it's all in the same layer stack again. And we have all of these, this one group with all of the black parts. And we can kind of break this up into specific channels. That'll be a little bit easier for the screen printer to read. You can do it in layers, or you can just rename each of these. So I like to do it with layers. So I'm just going to create 2 more layers. And I'm going to move the yellow one up into the 4th layer. And then the black one into layer 3. And then we'll leave the white one in layer 2. And I'm going to close those up. And I'm going to double click on there, or double click on the image, and we can change the name right here. So this will be yellow. You can just leave it as the name of the color. So we can press OK. So this is going to be everything that's yellow. This is going to be black. Then hit enter. And then layer 2 is going to be white. So now when they go through and they're making all of these screens, they can have individual like layers as that. So they can go ahead and print this version. So just the yellow. So they'll just print only the yellow. And of course it'll be black and not yellow, but this just allows them to see what it is. They'll go in and change the colors for it. But then you can hide that and then turn on black. So now you only have all the ink that's going to be black, and then white, all the stuff that's going to be white. And that pretty much like covers all of that. As far as like building stuff in Illustrator. Is there any questions before I show you how to save this?
So like this could be for like a shirt or a logo or anything like that, right?
Yes. So all this little extra stuff that I'm doing at the end, this is just for like screen printing on shirts. But if you're going to print like DTG, which is the direct to garment printer like we have here at Alkek One, you don't have to do all this stuff. All you have to do is make all of the shapes and everything like we did before. And then I said, at this point, you can just send this off to the printers. So that's all you have to do with those kinds of printers. This is only specifically for like anything that has like any kind of screen printing, or even if they're like to do remember how I was talking about UV gloss, say the yellow is actually going to be a glossy bit. Everything else is going to be flat, like matte kind of print. And it's going to be on white, and then you're going to print black, but we want this part in the white to be glossy. Well, we can like name that glossy, and then they'll understand, oh, this is the part that's going to have that UV shiny gloss part, like on this card. So.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, and in order to save this, if you're going to send this to anybody to print, just save it as a PDF. You can always save these, export these for like PNG and everything, but like let's just save it for like actually sending it to a printer. And yeah, PDF is fine. So we go ahead and select PDF, we hit save. And then it's going to pop up with this save Adobe PDF dialog box. It should automatically be checkmarked, but just verify that preserve Illustrator editing capabilities is checked on. This will allow them to, if there's anything that needs to be changed, you don't have to send them an Illustrator file over. You can literally just send them a PDF over and they can open all of this stuff with the layers inside of Illustrator with that. So that's how I would save it. And then just hit save PDF. And then you're done with that. Pretty straightforward, huh? And then there's also SVG, EPS. Those are all vectors that you can use. SVG is web friendly and it's very good for like taking your, like if you were to make a logo and you wanted to put it on a website, using an SVG is going to keep that like website's file size down. So. I'm going to stick around for any other further questions, but outside of that, that's it. Thanks for coming by, everyone. Thank you, guys. So when I'm done with this recording, eventually it'll send me a link and I will email the link for you to rewatch the recording afterwards. So it should be sometime later this evening. No problem.